So, the Lotus Atoll, Skyblock's latest island, has been out for a little while now, and my initial impressions of the island and the update are pretty solid, with a few caveats. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the Lotus Atoll update to find the good, the bad, and the ugly in Skyblock's second dedicated fishing island. Before we begin, though, make sure to like and subscribe. Use code RAIL on the Hypixel store for 5% off your order, and without any further ado, let's get started. To begin here, it's worthwhile to go over what the two major goals of the Lotus Atoll update seem to be based on developer commentary as well as many of the patch notes. And I believe those two changes were: first, improve the early and mid-game experience when it comes to fishing through a bunch of quality of life improvements, stuff like, for example, lowering the fishing speed cap on the bayou, having a lower one on the atoll, changing around the weights for all of the sea creatures, and changing how event sea creatures operate. The second half of this update was expanding on the trophy collection systems that were introduced with the Crimson Isle many years ago, and on top of that, make sure that the new island was full of life, and players had a reason to go there and experience it. When it comes to the quality of life parts of this update, I've got to say I think the team did a fairly good job, albeit with a few issues that I do want to go over. In terms of early game fishing, the lower fishing speed cap is so much better on the bayou, and I experienced a lot of it on a low level Ironman. It felt incredibly quick to not only get XP, get the items I wanted, and just progress through the island at an efficient pace. I also did not mind the bayou chapters very much. Personally, I have an issue with certain chapters going too far into the mid-game. I feel like chapters are a uniquely early game experience, and for example, catching a Titanoboa is a little bit closer to a mid-game experience at like fishing 30. Same thing with purchasing a gold bottle cap, doesn't really feel necessary for the chapter system. If that's my biggest complaint about the chapter system, I don't really think it's that bad. These could always be theoretically changed around in the future if the team wanted to, but it's fine as it is. It's just a difference of opinion between what I think chapters should be and what the team thinks they should be. That's fine. The issues with regard to this quality of life update come around when you look at the drop tables and the rarity of certain items. Notably, they did not really take this opportunity to change out a lot of the rarer drops associated with fishing. For example, ink sacs are not in the best spot right now. They're currently a little bit rare, and by a little bit I mean very rare, all things considered. You're not going to be able to fish up a ton of them super efficiently. Prismarine crystals are also in a similar state, although I imagine that will be fixed with the upcoming Desecrated Shrine update, which is going to be Guardian Slayer, so that kind of makes sense at the very least. There's also some other stuff I would like to go over. Sponge, I feel like, is in kind of a strange spot, especially for Iron Man players. You're not easily able to get a ton of it. You actually are kind of incentivized to just go to the builder and purchase a bunch of sponge and wet sponge, and then just trade the wet sponge into regular sponge through the trades menu. Just a very strange system to me. I feel like there's some stuff they could do here. For example, they could decide to make the sponge sinker a little bit better. Maybe it has a chance of getting you higher rarity sponge, who knows? In terms of rare drops, there's a lot of items that are far rarer after this patch compared to prior to this patch. Now granted, there is going to be a major balance update for basically the whole game in the future in the form of the Magic Find rework. However, the team should probably look at some of the new rarities, especially considering that they just changed out pretty much all the weights for all the sea creatures in the game. My experience though in doing some of the events were generally good. I felt like the shark event was still fine, fishing festivals felt great, and I didn't even have all of the unlocks. I didn't have the carnival buff that you get from there. I think that's like 5% more chance to get sharks. I didn't have the proper armor even. I'm rocking like a very bad setup, and I still felt like I was getting a good amount of sharks per hour. I got a very, very lucky few rolls when it comes to great whites. I had a good time. There were also quite a few other quality of life updates and changes when it comes to the Backwater Bayou. The new build looks awesome, and I love the fact that they included a lot of little walls all around the map to prevent sea creatures from flying off as easily. That is amazing. I'm also a big fan of the Carly NPC. Being able to actually see the upgraded sea creature guide is amazing, and I think the way they set this up is really good as well. It'll be great for new players to be able to see, oh, okay, you know, Dumpster Diver has this percentage chance of spawning. I can click on it, boom, I can now look at the Bestiary, I can see all the drops. Very well set up system. terms of some of the other changes, as you can see, there's rain on the backwater bayou, and I also am a big fan of the fact that this actually has effects on your stats. Notably, the weather effect giving me 25 fishing speed here makes the islands feel so much more alive. Another thing I've got to say, I like the crewmate system. I kind of wish we learned more about our crewmates as time went along, but I love the tease of World's End eventually being a fishing island. I do hope in the future, though, this does not become a system where you're swapping out different crewmates depending on what buffs you want to get. Just have us unlock more of them over time, let us upgrade the ship, improve its hull, and then we get a new model here with a bigger ship, and then eventually we can have a bunch of different crewmates, we can talk to all of them, maybe add stories related to them, who knows. And in terms of the other new feature introduced as part of this update, the Golden Pearls system, I'm actually a big fan of it. I think that the rewards are a little bit small. 1 treasure chance is fine, but 2.5 trophy chance is a little bit small for the Pearl of the Lotus, especially since you have to unlock all the diamonds on that island in order to get it. Would love to see this somewhat improved maybe in the future, but overall I'm a big fan of many of the systems changes and quality of life updates introduced as part of this update. So aside from all of the new quality of life features, let's start going over the other, more important part of this update, the Lotus Atoll island itself, which I think I personally had a lot of fun with, but I think it struggles with some major problems that we'll get into closer to the end of this video. First of all, the island itself is beautiful, and far larger than I initially anticipated it was going to be. There's a lot of little nooks and crannies, little areas you can go to, and the island itself is also full of life, which is something I'm a big fan of. There's constant activity, whether that be from the little creatures in the water, to the puddle jumpers, which are usually jumping around all over the place, to whatever else players end up finding, to the lily pad system. I like that this island feels like a living, breathing place, which is something I don't feel like a lot of other places in Skyblock feel like. In terms of the island, though, the major activities to do here are completing the island guide, which I've done most of on my main profile. The reason why I haven't finished it is because I would need to get all of the diamond trophy frogs, and as you can see, I'm close, but I'm not there just yet. But the other major part of the Lotus Atoll update is the new trophy frog system, and I've got to say, personally, I like the system, even if there are a few frogs that I think definitely need changes. Even if I got obscenely lucky with this reality hopper, they need to make the wormholes last a whole lot longer, man. I think many of the other frogs, for the most part, are fine. The only other changes I would make are maybe make the tree, cave, and highlands frogs spawn at a higher percentage chance. Right now, how trophies work are that they roll from the rarest down. So you roll your epics first, then your rares, then your uncommons, then your commons. So you're always going to get the first roll as your tree frog, your highlands frog, and your cave frog. Right now, I believe they're a 2% chance each to match the fish on the Crimson Isle. I would love to see that increase to 4% each. That way it's a little bit faster to grind those out, because right now it can be painfully slow. You can go on huge dry streaks where you just don't get access to any of those frogs, and it's not the most enjoyable experience in the world. Something I will say, though, is that I feel like the rewards for actually participating in this system are a little underwhelming, at least past the Adept stage. I would have loved to see some sort of upgrade to the previous Fisherman set. It's this little equipment set: Prismarine Necklace, Tropical Cloak, Sponge Belt, and Clay Bracelet. They got a few changes alongside this update. Now they give Trophy Chance. I would love to see an upgraded version of this, utilizing much of the Lotus that you get as part of this update anyway. It just feels like a logical thing. Might as well just add an upgrade, let players improve their Trophy Chance a little bit more. In terms of the island as a whole, though, I think its biggest issues when it comes to the actual content on it is that maybe it's a little too self-contained. There could perhaps be a couple more items that you would utilize in other places, aside from specifically trophy fishing, which obviously the trophy chance buffs are great for that as well. I don't know, maybe there could be some sort of improvement to double hook chance located somewhere on the island that you could find and utilize and bring with you to other islands. Once again, not the biggest deal in the world. I don't think that's people's largest complaint when it comes to this stuff at all. In fact, the complaints that I've been seeing are actually mostly bestiary related, as well as, quote, XP slop related. When it comes down to it, bestiaries in general are just not the best system for revamps because it forces players who already grinded out XYZ amount of content to go back and re-interact with all of the content that they already did. For example, as part of this update, they've added a few new mobs, like the Manta Ray, for example. You could make an argument that this mob doesn't really need to exist in the first place, but the reason why this sucks is not because the mob exists, but because there's a bestiary associated with it, and players now have to go back if they want to max out Skyblock XP and fully complete this bestiary. At this point, I am completely of the view that if the team wants to continue to do reworks and continue to add new content like this, which is totally fine on its face, they really need to cap the amount of bestiary XP you get. Right now, it's at 45.95. It's only going to continue to go up with every future update. I think capping it at around 4,500 XP tops, not really raising it in future updates, would be beneficial for a lot of reasons. It would allow the team to add new mobs and new creatures that are interesting and fun in their view, without endgame players and even some mid-game players getting upset that they have to go back to content that they've already done to grind out the bestiary. And on top of that, it creates more freedom in what the team is able to do in the future when it comes to mobs that already exist. If in the future they feel like a mob has no reason to exist and they want to consolidate it down, it doesn't really feel like you're taking XP away anymore because they have that buffer period of a certain amount of XP that you don't actually need to obtain from the bestiary system. I hope that makes sense. I think it's a more sustainable solution for the bestiary system because I do like it. I think it's interesting to earn magic find and strength from many of your mobs, as well as the other benefits associated with it. But currently, I think it's leading to problems when it comes to new updates, and players, especially endgame players, I feel like are getting tired of it. I wanted to spend a little bit of time going over some miscellaneous things, both positive and negative. I've got to say, I'm a big fan of quite a few of the features related to lily pads specifically. Not only is the progression just far better than it used to be, the way you unlock the lily pad tier 12 minion is awesome. The progression for lily pads in general is just better with exploding frogs. You get a decent amount of lily pads as well on the bayou. Things are just better flatly for lily pads. The collection is in a great spot, especially with the minion. In terms of the other stuff with regard to new items associated with the update, most of them are pretty good. I like all the new pet items. Many of the new rod parts are really, really nice. Puddle Jumper Hook is really cool, expands the hook system a little bit. Big fan of the trophy line. I think this is going to be great going forward for people who eventually want to trophy fish or for just trophy hunting in general. I like the Lotus Sinker too. It just, once again, expanding on the systems that already exist here. They did a good job in that regard. So we've talked about pretty much everything related to the Lotus Atoll, but the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about here is actually a negative aspect of this update, and it's something that I've been thinking about internally for a little bit now. I don't know why this island was pitched as an early game update to make the trophy experience a whole lot better, because in terms of the amount of trophy chance that you get from this island and the activities that you do on it, I don't really know why an early game player would come to this island. I get why endgame players come here. They want to complete all the content. They already have a ton of trophy chance. For them, the experience is probably really enjoyable. But I don't know why an early game player would come here. I understand why an early game player goes to the Backwater Bayou or the Crimson Isle or Galatea, because there's direct progression to be had on those islands. But the rewards from the Lotus Atoll, aside from a few things like, for example, the lily pads being a bright spot, I don't know why, if you are a new player, you would come to this island. The rewards from trophy frogging are mostly just related to giving you a little bit more trophy chance for when you eventually go to the Crimson Isle and fish there. If you've already done Crimson Isle fishing, I understand why you can come here. You want to get even more of that trophy chance, you want to fully max out both systems. But if you're just someone who's starting out playing Skyblock for the first time, there isn't really a direct reason for why you would want to come here. I hope in the future we get a balance patch for this island, giving players that reason. What do you come here for the Lotus Atoll for, aside from getting stuff related to trophy chance? Because frankly, you don't get a lot of trophy chance. In fact, I'd say you get a lot more trophy chance from doing trophy fishing, which is reasonable. It's a more endgame location, but I really think the numbers are skewed in such a way where I can't really recommend a new player come here. I would recommend they stay on the Bayou with all of the new changes and updates. They're still going to get a ton of lily pads, but if you absolutely need a ton of them really fast, you can come here, grind out stuff on the Bayou. It's a lot more useful for your fishing progression. This island is a side quest, and it really does feel like it, but it's so much of a side quest that I don't know why a player would come here until they're relatively late game. When a player is relatively late game, I think it's a good time. I think there's a lot of fun to be had here. But until that point, I don't know why you'd do it. Wrapping up here, I would love to hear your thoughts on the Lotus Atoll update down below. Whether you like the update or dislike it a ton, I want to hear your opinions. At the end of the day though, my name's Derailious. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end, and look to the future, fellas. I'll see you then.